Hi, this is Di, the bass playing mom, and today we are going to talk about some of your comments that you left in the last month. So I'm going to go through the last 4 videos I did and reply to your comments. So let's see what you said. So these are comments from the Christmas Eve service where I played bass and I made a video so that you could see, yes, I do play bass sometimes. This is what my gig looks like. So Frank, the bassist, said, check, check, sounds good, Di. I thought the checks went on way too long. I thought it was kind of funny. It feels like that at rehearsal, doesn't it, sometimes? Check, check. KJ Chicago 1 said, Di, that was terrific. A terrific Christmas worship service. You sounded good on that bass of yours. Thanks, KJ Chicago. You are like the most supportive person ever. I appreciate you. Andy T said, this makes me pine for Christmas. It does the opposite to me. I am so over playing those hard Christmas songs. Like, goodbye to those. It's great for me. I'm so glad they're done. Nitre FL2 said, Hi Di, I play a little bass too. Recently joined a church that already had a bassist, but needed percussion. Now I'm the regular cajon drummer. Keep low and God bless. There's some jokes going around about how bass players should stay low. But anyway, thank you so much, and I hope the cajon playing goes well for you. My son has been playing cajon. He really likes it. Drifter Gray said, well done. So thanks for your comments on that Christmas Eve service. And here are some comments from my video, Bass Player Memes. Devlov Gebers, #bass, said, I never understood jokes about bass players. Smiley face. Yeah, if you're going to be a bass player, you better get used to there being jokes. It's just kind of part of the deal, isn't it? KJ Chicago said, get yourself a Ford Explorer or a Chevy Equinox or a Dodge Durango or a Dodge Charger for your bass. Actually, I stick with sedans because then I can lock my bass in the trunk if I have to go inside somewhere, if we make a quick stop. If stuff's visible, I live in the Seattle area, everything gets stolen. Gabriel Castillos Donaji said, even though people make fun of bass and bass players, it doesn't change my mind. I really want to play bass. I hope you do, Gabrielle. You go out there and you play bass, whether they make jokes or not. Liberio Escriba said, thought you were actually crying at the end. Is that a Jim Dandy? I wanted one, but that year I'd already bought 3 guitars. I've been playing a guitar for 16 years now and a Squire bass for like 3. Can't even tell how much I love it without cracking my voice. I'm currently saving up for my first Fender bass. That is awesome. I hope you get that bass. Fenders are a little more expensive than the Squires, but they're worth it. Frank Bassist was replying to the video where the bassist had passed away and no one had noticed. He said, after 3 weeks, it should smell a little in the church. Smiley face. And I said, unless the church already smells bad. And he said, kind of a sixth sense, like, I smell dead people. Okay, so not my church, but there was another church where you could smell the spilled coffee. So much coffee had been spilled in the rugs. When you came in, they had started running a dehumidifier to get rid of the coffee smell. It was so gross. Ugh. Would cover up the scent of a dead bass player, though. Ray Quesada says, bass players are the Rodney Dangerfield of the band. This is so true. We get no respect. And Jose Miguel said, some are so good. Laugh out loud. So he got some of those jokes. So there's a new one I have to share with you. Oh my gosh. Yes, there is a new bass player meme. Church bassist admits he's just been playing a Journey riff for every worship song. This is from the Babylon Bee, Cookeville, Tennessee. After being confronted by the leadership team at Maple Street Baptist Church, local church bassist Steve Jazz Hands Bronson admitted Friday that he'd just played a Journey bass line for every worship song since he began playing bass for the church over 8 years ago. The scandal was uncovered when church sound guy John Static Anderson accidentally turned Bronson's volume up in the house for the first time in years on Sunday. Churchgoers were taken aback to hear one of Journey's most iconic bass lines blasting from the sound system throughout the worship band's rendition of Your Grace Is Enough. I just kind of rock the Don't Stop Believin' riff every time, he said when pressed. You just walk it up and walk it back down. No one's the wiser. Frankly, I could play Sabbath's Heaven or Hell or Maiden's Run to the Hills and no one would hear me anyway. The church has agreed to keep Bronson on the worship band as long as he promises his classic rock and heavy metal bass lines are turned down to a level where absolutely no one can hear him. To be fair, my church does keep the bass up. In fact, that's usually the complaint. And here are some comments from my video, How I Practice Bass. KJ Chicago left 2 comments. One, way to keep in time with the music. And the second one, you're still a great bassist and a great bass playing mom. Keep working at it. Interesting. Thank you so much. And then Andrew Kahn said, that was helpful. Thank you. I didn't know if it would help anybody, but I love what Jeff Mason said. Jeff Mason says, watching this was a little surreal. The worship team I played bass for was up this week, and this exact song was our opening song. So I went through the same process as you this week in terms of learning and practicing. We played it in F sharp though, and I played all in the place you were on the bridge with the F sharp on the 9th fret. Rhythmically, you and I ended up basically the same place. So funny to see someone go through the same, how do I do this, on the same song on the same weekend. All right, and finally, the comments on this bass. I made a video about this Musicmaster bass. I will put an eye in the sky to that video, and these were your comments on the video about this bass. Mike Taglione said, there are things I wish I still had from my youth. It's wonderful that you kept it. Good for you. Yeah, it's still here, and actually, it is my favorite practice instrument, so I practice on it all the time. I actually keep it in my room most of the time so that I don't even have to get out of bed to practice. That's what bass players do when you have so many basses. How could you have 3 basses? You must not even play any of them. Well, I have an upstairs bass and a downstairs bass and a gig bass. And one I never play that's got dust on it. That happens, right? KJ Chicago 1, you're terrific on that old 1978 or 1979 Fender Musicmaster bass. Yeah, there's no way to figure out the year unless you know something I don't. So let me know if you know a way to know if it's a 78 or a 79. Foul said this. Help. Somebody translate this. It won't even highlight so I can drop it into Google Translate. It looks like Japanese to me. But because I know this much Japanese, not enough to read that. So if any of you can read this comment, that would be awesome. Thanks. Orange Yelye said, oh man, that is so good. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Friendly Dog said they still make that kind of bass. Check out the Fender Squire Bronco bass. It's kind of similar to the Musicmaster. Oh, here we go. Here's one. I don't know. They look different to me. What do you think? Do you think a Fender Squire Bronco bass is a lot like this bass? Let me know in the comments below. That'd be great. Ray Casita said, I like a real jewel. I don't know if this bass has ever considered itself a jewel. This bass doesn't have a name. It's kind of funny because I do have 2 named basses, but this one doesn't have a name. Maybe Jewel. That would be funny. Jose Miguel says, sounds and looks amazing. I'm glad you still like it. You know, this brings back good memories. So, T.I. Yorkie, you figured me out. Psycho Killer, Tina Weymouth. Yes, the song I played at the beginning of that video was a reference to me talking later about Tina Weymouth has played the Mustang bass before, and she was the person, I think she and her husband actually wrote Psycho Killer. It's, you know, it was played with the Talking Heads, but, you know, she played bass and her husband played drums, so they had a lot of songs that were theirs, and I think that was actually one of their songs. He said, suggest you change to a straight plug for a right angle die. When you bang that plug, as you do, the bass socket gets damaged. I learned the hard way. God richly bless you, from New Zealand. Well, thank you for leaving a comment from New Zealand and outsmarting my cord. I never understood the attraction to the bent chords. However, I did totally jack this one up because of the cord. Now I have to replace everything. Thanks for making me smart. I just hadn't thought it through. You're right. Wolf Warren said, "Hi Di, thought I'd give you some info that I'd heard via word of mouth. The pickups typically were Strat pickups that weren't satisfactory to go in the guitars, which made it cheaper because they didn't have to worry about production costs of the pickups." One fact that I know is true is that at the time of Musicmaster's production, the high-end long-scale Telecaster bass used a 2-saddle bridge as well and shared its saddles with the Musicmaster. So that's where that terrible saddle came from. As far as its production, Fender reissued the Musicmaster in the 90s and now sells a similar instrument in the form of the Squier Bronco. Great video, keep up the good work. Yeah, I totally forgot about the 90s reissue. I knew there was a reissue in the 90s and I forgot to mention it in the video. You're absolutely right. It's kind of ironic because my Mustang bass, my first Mustang, is actually a reissue of a 64 bass, and to think that this was reissued in the 90s is kind of interesting. And yeah, I guess the Bronco is that entry-level bass like this was, but I still like mine better. And then Brian Crow said to me, what country was it made in? And I don't know what happened. My brain just went on hold or something. I was like, oh, it's got to be an American because Fender wasn't bought out by CBS by then. And Stuart Clough, thank goodness, he's like, they were bought out in 1963 or 64. I'm like, yeah, you know, the 60s, the 80s, it's all kind of the same. So somebody help me out. Is this bass American, or would it be from Mexico then? Or where would it be from? Where were these basses produced? After 20 years after the CBS bought out Fender. I don't know what I was thinking. And then Stuart Clough left a nice long comment that says, my friend had a silver 1978 Musicmaster. He walked past a shop many years ago and it was for sale for 150 pounds. It had a sign on it that said, would suit short, fat bass player with small hands. Unfortunately, he is now in the process of selling it for 800 pounds. I got offered it, but I am strictly long scale. It has the same strings on for years and sounds terrific. Okay, total admission, these strings are like a zillion years old, and on the Mustang back here, I think they're starting to get the bump. Do you know that bump that they get when they've been, yeah, they get a little bump in them. I have another set of strings in the house. I don't know. I just don't like how new strings sound. You know what I mean? The way new strings sound? Like, who wants that? I don't want that. So, keeping the old strings on as long as I can. It's when they won't stay in tune or they get that bump, they get that big ridge over the frets, that's when it's time for me to change strings. Well, thank you guys for leaving your comments. I really appreciate it. Help me with my timelines, because obviously I goofed that up a bit. Tell me if you're interested. I could do a video on the history of Fender basses. That would take a little research on my part. So I don't want to do it unless that's a video you want to see. So let me know if that's something you're interested in. I have more bass videos here, and then here is a video that YouTube picked out just for you.